Recently, I was asked by a member on my Discord server, a Gotti, to preview a mod they were working on, named Ranger Sonic. I accepted, partially out of curiosity about what would be changed about a Ranger Sonic, but I was unfortunately disheartened by how it's your standard combination of vanilla abilities with a few taken from other mods, with the only unique factor being new, fairly amateur sprites. It's about what you'd expect from a first mod, so let's dive in. The first thing you'll likely notice about Ranger Sonic is his incredible momentum. The one thing that remains fairly consistent amongst any modded character that stops sort of completely modifying how the game works is how they will all travel within a certain range of speeds, which by trial and error has been found to be about as fast as you can go while still feeling like you're in control. You can stop fairly quickly, you won't repeatedly overshoot platforms as long as you're careful, but you'll still feel like you're making good pace through the level. Ranger Sonic is significantly faster than this, and combined with a moveset that is almost entirely centered around going faster, he can often feel too fast, crossing into walls and bypassing massive chunks of the level using standard level gimmicks. In this way, I feel he might actually be a fairly popular choice for learning to speedrun, because if you have a reaction time slightly less appalling than mine, you'll probably adapt to this fairly quickly, and vanilla Sonic does admittedly feel pretty slow in comparison. My complaints with the moveset aren't really focused around this though. Being fast is by no means a bad thing by itself. It's the standard hodgepodge of abilities that you see so often that rubs me more the wrong way. Let's look at Ranger Sonic's moveset. You have a Thok, you have a homing attack, you have a dash mode, you have a boost, which is laughably more powerful than it needs to be and essentially allows you to reach any platform from any distance as long as it's on the same level or lower than you. The only two comparatively uncommon abilities here are a bounce and wall jump, but they have their own problems. Both are mapped to spin, with the decision of which activating seemingly being based off your proximity to a wall. Touching a wall activates the wall jump, obviously, which seems to massively increase your momentum far more than feels natural, while not touching it activates the bounce. The problem is, and correct me if I'm wrong here, where are you most likely to use the ability that slightly increases your height, allowing you to surpass walls slightly higher than a jump reaches? Oh yes, near a wall! This means that you'll pretty often wall jump when you intend to bounce, which wouldn't necessarily be a problem as it can be easily avoided by just moving back slightly, if it wasn't the fact that it selects which ability to use extremely inconsistently. Sometimes you'll actively try to activate a wall jump and it'll just keep using the bounce. Sometimes you'll only be able to wall jump if you land on the wall before your first of 3 bounces. Sometimes you'll perform 2 or 3 bounces before the game decides to arbitrarily throw you into a wall jump, possibly to your death. Ranger Sonic does have custom sprites, and they don't look awful. I've certainly seen far worse sprites clearly made by people with more experience and better tools to work with, so I won't go out there and completely dismiss these. There's an earnestness to them, and some do look pretty nice. There are some weird anatomical choices here and there. Sonic can look quite square in some places from some angles, and I'd recommend a Gotti practices cutting out the sprites from whichever program they used a little more, as there's some very slight oddities found around the sprite edges in some places. I'd say the bigger point of contention is with ability effects, as they've clearly been taken from whichever mod a Gotti has ripped them from and haven't been edited, so the boost effect where Sonic pushes the air in front of him is too small and oddly shaped, while the Thok ring is also blatantly made by a different artist from the sprite. The sprites need work, but I think making sure they remain consistent across the board could end up with them looking pretty good. And that's all there is. Ranger Sonic isn't as complex as a lot of characters I've covered recently, in previews or reviews, so this ended up being a pretty short video. As this is a preview, I won't be giving a numerical score, as that isn't really fair, but I will admit I've been pretty harsh about an incomplete mod that is seemingly a first by the creator. Improvement areas? Make the boost less powerful. Ironically, I rarely used it for actually gaining speed, as it's far too powerful to ever be used for that without some sort of turning ability, but instead just for skipping level segments which end at a lower point than they start, as it does again currently practically work as perfect gliding. Make abilities flow into one another better. At the moment everything feels very separate, as you can't really combo one ability into the next, which is half the fun to most SRB2 characters. Separate the bounce and wall jump. One custom button is used, so clearly a Gotti isn't averse to using them, so utilise one of the others to give each ability as much utility as possible. Finally, just edit the sprites to make them more consistent and a little rounder. as there is currently a lot of flat lines where there should be rounder ones, as well as a lot of anatomical mishaps with arms getting longer and shorter from one sprite to the next. Also, edit the ability effects used to actually fit the character. Making these changes won't make the character some 10 out of 10 classic, but it'll reach the full potential of the current, admittedly limiting concept. And with that, I hope you enjoyed the video, and ciao.